discussion that Shmuel raised is based on our Mishnah, right? Our Mishnah is meant to teach us something about something called yadot. Yadot literally mean handles, and we understand them to mean when you say shorthand, right? You say, I'm going to do something, but instead of saying the whole object and the whole what you're going to do, you make it sound, you imply some of it. And so yadot nedarim are kinedarim. So if you don't say, now the Ran consistently understands, though he doesn't just understand it this way, that you basically left out the word I promise. You didn't say, cherem or something like that, or that word, right? You didn't say that word that usually means something is prohibited to me. But you said, I'm not going to benefit from something, or I'm not going to get it. And so you didn't say, I'm not going to get it as a neder. You just said, I'm not going to do it. And that's shorthand for basically making a neder. So the Mishnah gave 5 examples, which were mudrani, I don't know, some distant from you. Mufreshani, I'm going to be separated. Muruchkani, I'm going to be, again, distant. And you said, Sha'ani ochel lecha, or shlach, or lecha, I guess. Sha'ani to'em lecha, that which I would normally eat from you or taste from you. Asur. That's what the Mishnah said, it's asur. So we discussed yesterday Shmuel's very interesting rule, which is that, those cases in the Mishnah, 5 cases seem to come into 2 categories, right? The first 3 are all statements that say, I'm distant from you, I'm separate from you. The next 2 relate to a person saying something that I'm going to not eat from you, not going to taste from you. So Shmuel said they're connected. You really need one from set A and one from set B. Right? You need to say, I want to be distanced from you, that which I would normally eat from you. And we asked a lot of questions on that because the Breita very clearly didn't say it that way. The Breita used the word asur in the middle, right? The middle of the 3 and the middle of the 2. And so at the end of the day yesterday, we had a new pshat in Shmuel. And the new pshat in Shmuel, we said on the bottom, is that the reason, what Shmuel was saying is this. If you just say, Meruchkani mimcha, you're asur for someone, but you're asur and they're asur to you. You're saying, I want to be distanced from you. I don't want you to get anything from me. I don't want to get anything from you. But if you say, that which I would eat from you, you're just saying, I don't want to eat, so you can't eat from me. What I would give you to eat. You can't eat anything from me, but I'll eat from you. I'll be happy to go to your house and celebrate. So that's what Shmuel was saying, that everyone is prohibited, but if you say both, then you're only prohibited in one direction, not in both directions. Okay? So that's the Gemara on the top. Ella, I'll read the words again, top of Daf Hey. Aval, Amar Mudrani Himchal Lichudei, if you had just said, I want to be separate from you, then Shnehem Asurim. It goes both ways. The speaker is Asur and the object, or the subject is Asur. As Rabbi Yossi Reb Chanina is quoted as saying, if a person says, Mudrani Himcha, Shnehem Asurim. Now you are an eagle-eyed reader, will notice that Rabbi Yossi Reb Chanina said, Mudrani Himcha, whereas Hey Yud Mem Chaf, right? And our Mishnah said, Mudrani Mimcha, which sounds very different. And the Gemara is going to point that out in a second. But we're saying now that those are the same thing. If I say Mudrani from you, it's the same as Mudrani with you, is how I would probably translate Himcha. I don't know what the art school says, but something like that. Himcha means together, right? Which certainly implies both. We think it means the same thing. Now it's not. Today's daf, the 3rd line from daf Hey, we learned in a Mishnah later on, way later in the Masechet, if a person says to someone else, Hareini alecha chera, I am to you prohibited. Okay, I am prohibited to you. Then hamudar asur, aval madir lo. There, the mudar is asur, meaning the object, the subject, the person I spoke to. But Reuven goes to Shimon and says, I am to you cherem, meaning you can't get anything from me. Everything of mine is asur to you. So the mudar, the object of the neder, is, what do you call it? The person you said the neder to is asur. Aval madir, but the person speaking is not asur. Well, that seems to contradict this, because we just said that if you say, I am cherem to you, it means we're both ways. We go back and forth. So says the Gemara, well, that must be kigon did parish. It must be where you said in that Mishnah, I am cherem to you, meaning everything I own is prohibited to you, but at alai lo, but don't make any mistakes. I want to get your stuff, right? So you speak out and you say, I what's mine is prohibited to you, like a karban. What you have, I'll be happy to take. Nice guy, right? Says the Gemara, or further, you said, at, this is continuation of the Mishnah. If you say at alai cherem, which is the opposite language, what you have is to me, meaning I say to my friend, my former friend, everything you have is prohibited to me like a karban. I can't obviously benefit from you, but you can benefit from me. So then hanoder asur, the one who makes the neder is asur and his friend's stuff. Aval mudar, but the person who said it about, lo. And again, it seems to contradict the rule that Shmuel is saying, which is that if you say stam, I'm going to be prohibited for you, it means both ways. And so again, you'd have to explain kigon de parish vani alecha lo. It left out that you also said what is yours is a karban to me, but mine is not prohibited to you. Says Gemara, well then, if that's the case, then you have to speak it out. Then it would imply that stama, if you don't say anything, you just say, Atalai cherem, what you have is cherem to me, it means they're both asur, shnehem asurim. But then what about the seifa? How many tell me seifa? On the end of the Mishnah, later on again, in Daf Mem Zayin, is, Hareini alecha v'atalai, if I say, you're prohibited to me, and I'm prohibited to you, then they're both asur, shnehem asurim, right? But according to what you just told me, you don't need to say both directions. You just need to say, you're separated from me, right? You don't need to say, and I'm from you. So this contradicts it. And this now we get a Yerushalmi word. Hadenu, right? Haden is not a word you find in the Bible, right? Hadenu, it's in this case, Dishnehem Asurin, right? Here it's where both are prohibited, Hastama. But if you just said one direction, Hu Asur B'Chavero Mutar. So that must be a mistake. So Shmuel can't be saying that. And now we're going to throw out the second shot in Shmuel. Shmuel can't be saying that our Mishnah says these weird cases because if I just said I want to be separate from you, it's going to go both ways. So let's have a new shot in Shmuel. Elahachi Yitzbar. The Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina, sorry, before we get to Shmuel, the way I understand Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina is that if I say to a person, Mudar ani licha. So now this is a funny language. Instead of saying mudrani mincha or something, you say, I made a neder for me to you, then shneim asurim, right? Because you said me to you, implying that it sort of goes both ways. But if you said mudrani himcha, now here's the himcha word, right? I am prohibited from you or to you, then it's one direction. And either it's me to you or you to me, depending on how I say it. Hu asur v'chavero mutar. In that case, if I say, Mudrani himcha, I am a neder from you, meaning whatever you have is prohibited to me, then it's only one direction. Okay? So that's what Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Chanina said. Now, if you still think that Shmuel could be explaining our Mishnah that way, our Mishnah, Matnitin, this is the Mishnah later, in Mem Zayin, says, Tani himcha, right? It means, himcha is again that language, like with you. Right? We explained, according to what we think now, that Shmuel was replying to our Mishnah, that when it said, Mudrani himcha, it only meant if I then specify that which I will eat, that which you will drink, right? Or taste, sorry. Who, in that case, the asur b'chavero mutar. But if you just said the words Mudrani himcha, shnehem asurin. Now, again, I pointed out this before, it's a little problematic because the Mishnah does not say Mudrani himcha. The Mishnah says Mudrani mimcha, right? Or lecha. So, but we're understanding that obviously it's not, doesn't seem to be the point of the Mishnah. The Mishnah implies, according to Shmuel, that if you would say Mudrani himcha, they both be asur. Ella, this is how you have to understand Shmuel. Meikar de Shmuel hachi itmar, forget everything I just told you about Shmuel. And the way to really understand Shmuel from the beginning is the following. The reason the Mishnah says these odd cases is the following. Taima, if I go up to a person and say, Mudrani mimcha, right? Or Miruchkani mimcha, I want to be separate from you. And then says Shmuel, the reason that you're asur in this way is taima de amar shani ochel lecha shani to'im lecha. That is because you then followed it by saying, Miruchkani mimcha, I want to be distanced from you, that which I eat from you, right? So that is hu de'ein hu asur ela ba'achila. Then you're clarifying that when I go to that person and say, I want nothing to do with you, I'm limiting it to that which we eat together. I'm saying, Mudrani mimcha ma shani ochel, right? I want to be a neder from you for what I would normally eat. But if I want, I could play ball with you, or I could go to your house and enjoy your car, or, you know what I mean? Like I can get other benefits from you. I just can't eat your food, right? Ha mudrani mimcha, but if you just say the words mudrani mimcha without a clause, without specifying that which I will eat from you, then asur afilu b'hana'ah. Then you would be prohibited in everything. You'd be saying, I don't want any benefit from you. Everything you own is prohibited to me. So that's what Shmuel was saying. The reason the Mishnah said it this way is the Mishnah is implying you're only asur ba'achila. The only time that your isur is limited to achila is if you specify. You say, I want to make a neder for that which I will eat from you. Okay? So that's what Shmuel was saying. So that's, well, that seems very problematic, because Shmuel's implication was that the only reason you're usher is because you said it this way. And what we're saying now is that if you didn't say it this way, you'd be usher even more. You're less usher, you're only usher in food, not in everything else, because you said it this way. But the implication of Shmuel was that this is the only time you're usher, right? Or as the Gemara puts it very succinctly, ihachi lema Shmuel hachi. So why didn't Shmuel just say that? Right? Why didn't he say, and the Bach has a girsi here that I'm going to read, ihachi lema Shmuel hachi, and he should say the following: V'im lo amar shani ochel lecha v'shani toim lecha asura afilu b'hana'ah. Right? Shmuel should have said the opposite. And the reason, meaning you're only asur in this case. You're only limited to the isur of achila in this case. But if you didn't say that which I'll eat from you, you're asur in everything. You're asur from getting any benefit from the person. Ella, okay, new pshat. Yeah, you can wake up for a new pshat. 7 lines in the bottom. I know. Hachi itzma. This is how we understand Shmuel. The reason the Mishnah said that you have to also say shani ochel, shani to'em, is hu da asar. That's the only time you're asar in this way. Aval amar mudrani himcha. If you just said to a person, I want to be distant from you, I want to be nadur from you, you're not prohibited. You know why? Because we don't know what you mean. If you say mudrani himcha, lo mashma da amar asur, you're not asur. My timer, because all you're saying is mudarani mimcha. I want to be separate from you, meaning lo mishta'ina bahadach. I don't want to hang out with you. Not that I don't want to get any benefit from you, but all I'm saying is I want to have less of a relationship with you. Mashma. Or if you say mufrashani mimcha, what does that mean? I want to be separate from you. I don't want to do any business with you. Mashma. And miruchkani mimcha means I want to be separate from you. What does that mean? You stink, right? Mashma, or something like that. I don't want to be within 4 amot of you. But it doesn't mean I want to be usher to you, like a karban. It just is a language of saying, get away from me, which we all say all the time. But just saying to someone, get away from me, does not mean and never give me anything again in your life, right? Obviously, it doesn't mean that. So if you just say, get away from me, right? Or I want you to be distanced from me, Shmuel is saying that does not clearly say, I want to be prohibited to you, right? Now, obviously, in a context, this gets a little tricky. What's the context? But in a context where I'm talking about karbanot or things like that are isur, it does imply that. It still is a yad, right? Because the way you would make a neder is you would say, I want everything to be away from me. I don't want to not have access to it. So it's still a yad, but it's what we call a yad she'ino mochiach. It's a yad that's not unequivocal, right? It's not clear. It can mean many different things. And so what Shmuel seems to be telling us right now, says the Gemara on the top line of Daf Hey Amud Bet, Lema Kasavar Shmuel, this seems to tell us that Shmuel is of the opinion that yadayim she'in mochichot lo havi yadayim. A supporting statement around the neder that's not clear does not count. And so just saying to a person, I want to be really far away from you, which might mean I don't want anything to do with you, right? I don't want to benefit from anything you have. But it might also mean I just want to not spend time with you, or I don't really want to be in your proximity because of whatever reason. Not that I'm prohibited on things that you own and you're prohibited on things I own. So that's a yad she'ino mochiach. And what Shmuel seems to be telling us is that yadayim she'in mochichot lo havi yadayim. That's what our Mishnah is telling us. So the only time that you actually are prohibited from this yad is if you say both clauses. You say, mudrani mimcha, that which I would eat from you. So you clarify, I want to be away from you for food, right? Then you're prohibited in food. Says the Gemara, that's interesting, and that's a really good shot, but that implies that Shmuel is making our Mishnah, right, says the Gemara, yes, right? That's what we're saying. Shmuel mukim lalamatnitin Reb Yehuda. Shmuel is actually saying our mission is like this is machlokes tanaim, and this is the opinion of Reb Yehuda. The Amar Yadayim shein mochichot lo havin Yadayim. That if a person says something, but it's not unequivocal, it's not clear, it doesn't count. It's not. And this is actually based on a fascinating discussion in Gittin, which we're going to have in, I don't know, many months, maybe a year, right? All the way at the end of Masechet Gittin, the Mishnah says the following. Gufo shall get. The main text of what's written in a get are the following words. Harei at muteret l'chol adam. A man says to a woman who he is married to up till that moment, you are now permitted to any man, meaning you're no longer married to me. So that's the main part of the get. Now, gets are much longer than that, of course, right? But that's the main part of what's in the get. That's what the Mishnah says. Rabbi Yehuda says that's not enough. Because if I just said to, a person just said to their wife, you are mutar to anyone, it would not be clear that I want you to go marry anyone. Maybe I mean you're mutar to spend time with them. You're mutar to do business with them. You're whatever, something else. You have to add, says Rabbi Yehuda, the following words. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, you have to say, now it's a quote, V'dein dihavi lichi minai sefer tiruchin v'igrash shvukin. This you have from me, these are all Aramaic words, right? Dein dahavi lichi minai, you get from me a sefer, a book that separates us, and a letter that splits us apart. So you have to explicitly say, this get is not just, a suggestion or something will be different. This is the get that splits us apart, that breaks our relationship. If you don't, it's not good enough. So clearly, Rabbi Yehuda says you have to be explicit in what you're saying. And the Chachamim say that clearly from the context, people are getting divorced and it's in that context, you can rely on the context, which is what a yad is. So Lema, where am I? So So says the Gemara, why? Why did Shmuel, my dachik Shmuel look more than Matnitin Reb Yehuda? Why would Shmuel have to interpret our Mishnah to be going according to Reb Yehuda, who's a dak yachid, right? He's an individual, who says Yadayim she'in mochichot lo having Yadayim. Why don't you just why shouldn't our Mishnah be like the Rabbanan? Look ma ki Rabbanan, afagav de'in Yadayim mochichot. Why do you look at our Mishnah and say, our Mishnah does not require you to say the second clause. The first clause is ambiguous, so what? According to the Chachamim, being ambiguous is good enough. You can make a neder, even if it's ambiguous. Says Rava, there's a reason Shmuel said it. Shmuel said it because matnitin keshita. The Mishnah was difficult. The Mishnah text, right, seems to be difficult because amai tani shani ochelach shani to'em lach. Why does a person say that which I eat from you, right, and that which I taste from you? Litni shani ochel shani to'em. Why don't you say very simple language, right? Which is mudrani mimcha shani ochel, that which I eat. Why do you have to again repeat to you? Clearly, you're adding that I just don't make any mistakes. When I say I want to be away from you, it's because I want to separate that connection, not because I just want to step somewhere else. So the fact that you added the word licha, or lach, I guess really, it's not, well, licha, I guess. In fact, you added the word licha in a male circumstance, right, is what teaches us that shmamina v'inan yadayim mochichot. You see that you have to be explicit. So if I just go to someone and say, I really want nothing to do with you, that which eats, that which we eat, right? It's not enough. You have to be, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you have to be clear and say that which I eat from you, right? And so because of that, you could have always read it otherwise. If let's say I'm very angry at a person, say, I want to be far away from you, that which we eat. Maybe you're saying is I never want to have a meal with you again. Not that I don't want to eat your food, right? I don't want to go to a restaurant with you. You have bad table manners. But if you send me food, I'll eat your food, right? So clearly, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you have to add these words, which are like, transition words, to specify exactly who it is, essays, right? So that is how Shmuel read our Mishnah. Okay, and that's how we conclude. That's how Shmuel is explaining our Mishnah, that Shema Mina, according to our Mishnah, which is Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, V'inan Yadayim Mochichot. Itmar, let's just clarify one more thing today before we finish this short daf. One more detail about Yadayim She'ein Mochichot. So says the Gemara statement, Itmar, halfway down, Yadayim She'ein Mochichot. If you have a statement that's a little bit ambiguous, it could mean, and certainly in context, you're fighting with someone, you say, I want nothing to do with you, right? So in context, it sounds like you're making a neder, that you want to prohibit yourself from having any interaction with that person. But the words are not so clear. We'll get some examples, of course. It's a whole sugya. We'll get many examples, right? So says the Gemara, if you have a yad for a neder that's not clear, Abaya says havin yadayim. It actually counts and it's a neder. Rava says lo havin yadayim. It's not a neder. Now this is very weird because we just quoted you a Mishnah where the Chachamim and Rabbi Yehuda argued about this. So Abaya and Rava, like 400, I don't know, 400 years, like 250 years later, probably. Like, what are they doing, arguing the opinions of the Mishnah? Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's not a new concept. So, of course, Amar Rava. Now, Rava, before we ask that question, says, Rav Idi Asbarali. The reason I have this opinion that Yadayim She'ena Mochichot are not Yadayim, that if you say a neder with a support language that's not so clear, that's ambiguous, doesn't count, Rav Idi, my teacher, I guess, told me from the following pasuk. Amar Kra, the pasuk says by a nazir, which remember is a type of neder, which we've been discussing a lot. It says nazir lahazir lashem, right? And we dashed on this earlier, that's a strange double language. And it's there to tell you, if you recall earlier, that there's such a concept of yadot by a nazir, right? That not just by neder, but also by a nazir, there's a concept of yad. So says Rav Idi, my teacher, makish yadot nizirot b'nizirot. So we compare yadot nizirot to nazir. We compare these secondary ways of making a nazir to actually saying, I want to be a nazir. And just like ma nazirut b'hafla'ah, this is a concept we're going to have many, many times in the next 6 months. So it's worth discussing a little bit. Just like nizirut has to be hafla'ah. I don't exactly know how you would translate hafla'ah, but I can tell you what it means. You can tell me what ArtScroll translates it. But hafla'ah means it has to be clear. It has to be very specific.
A clear adherence.
Clear, sorry? Clear.
Clear adherence.
Okay, so just like a nazir, it has to be clear that when you say it, you're committing to be a nazir. And the classic example, again, we're going to see many, many details of this example. The classic example is where a person, two people are arguing, right? They're always friends. And they say, I heard that Joe is a nazir. And Reuven says to Shimon, no way, Joe would never be a nazir. You know what? If Joe's a nazir, I'll be a nazir, or something like that. And then it turns out that he is, right? The case thing was a guy walking down the street. And anyways, the point is that I basically said, Reuven said, I want to be a nazir if Joe is, but I didn't really mean it. I said it because I thought he wasn't, right? So it's not a commitment to really being a nazir. It's because you sort of making a condition with your assumption that he wasn't a nazir. So you're not clearly committing to it. You're basically doing it conditionally where you think the condition won't apply. And so that's one of the classic examples where nazir has to be clear. You have to know and want to do it at the time you become a nazir. Okay? Okay, distinct. So I'm not sure if that catches the whole meaning, but it would have, we'll see. We're going to have this
articulation.
Oh, distinct. Okay. But it's even if you say, like if I say, if the Astros lose, I'm going to be a nazir, let's say, but I think they're not going to lose, right? So then it doesn't count. Well, so you would normally say that, but you don't say it here. So this is an exception to that, right? Because I didn't make a condition. I didn't say I'll be a nazir if Shimon's a nazir, but I really don't think he's a nazir, right? I didn't condition it, but we can tell from the context that you said it because you thought it was wrong, right? You didn't think you're arguing your point. So anyways, just like Nizirut has to be a clear utterance or a distinct way of saying it, so too Yadot Nizirot Bahafla'ah. So too, a Yad has to be clear. And so just like by Nazir, we learned from Neder, it's the same thing, that a Yad has to be very, very clear. Well, says the Gemara, the question I pointed out before. It seems like they're arguing, Abaye and Rava, about the exact same thing that Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbanan argued about, which again is an unusual thing because they're much, much later, generations later, they're not taking sides in this Machloket Tanaim. Like how does that make any sense? Ditznan is the Mishnah that we quoted earlier from the end of Gittin. Gufo shall get. What is the main text of a get? Are the words Hareyat Mutar D'Chol Adam. The man writes to his wife, soon to be ex-wife, you are mutar to any person. And Rabbi Yehuda adds and says that's not enough. You have to say the dain the ahavi lechi minai, and this I'm giving you from me a sefer to yichun the get piturim the igeret shvukin. Right, we added a word here, right? No, I'm sorry, they were all there. Yeah, we added some words here because we didn't quote Igeret before. But I'm giving you a book that separates us, and a get that frees you, and a letter that releases you. So you have to clearly say it. So it seems like Abaya D'Amar Rabbanan, Rav D'Amar Rabbi Yehuda. The Abaya is just saying the opinion of Rabbanan, which I guess gives Abaya a lot more strength, right? And that Yadayim She'ena Mochichot count, that even though it's not so clear, it implies it, and the context is such that it actually counts. And Rava says, like Rabbi Yehuda, that you have to exactly specify. This is where, well, that's clearly, they can't just be arguing the Machloket Tanaim. Abaya, who says Yadayim She'ena Mochichot are not Yadayim, or sorry, are Yadayim, Abaya would say to you, you know what? Ana da'amri afilu Rabbi Yehuda. Even Rabbi Yehuda, who says that in a get, you have to add all these words to clarify exactly what you mean. By a neder, you don't need to do that. And do you know why? Because by a get, Ad kan lukam Rabbi Yehuda inan yadayim mochichot. Rabbi Yehuda only said in the Mishnah of Gittin that you need language that's very clear. Elagabe get, even kritut. Remember, a get is a karet. It cuts off the relationship between the man and the woman, the husband and the wife. And so because of that, by a get, you specifically need language that's unambiguous. It's got to be super clear exactly what it means. However, by a neder, you don't have such a concept of pritut. So says Abaya, I would maintain that even Rabbi Yehuda, who says by get, that you need to add the words to clarify exactly what you mean, would not hold that you need to add those words by a neder. Alva ba'alma, sorry, you don't have kritut. Alva ba'alma mishamalei. In a regular case, meaning by a regular neder, I don't think the Rabbi Yehuda would say you even need to be that explicit. So that's why Abaya is saying, I'm not taking a side with Machloket Tanaim. I'm saying all the Tanaim agree with me. Yadayim she'ina mochichot, havim yadayim, they count. And Rava would say to you, now the bottom last line, Ana da'amri afil Rabbanan. I say Yadayim she'ina mochichot don't count. But I would say that even according to the Rabbanan, who said that a get can just be a few words. It can just be, you're free now for every person. Because Ad kan look Ami Rabbanan hatam, Yadayim mochichot. Rabbanan only said you don't need Yadayim mochichot elagabe get to ein adam megaresh et eshet chavero. Right? Like the context of a get is that how's it going to apply to somebody else, right? A get only can really apply to people who are in a committed relationship. And you're saying, I'm freeing you from that, being in the relationship. So therefore, it's very clear that when you give a get, that you're saying, even though you don't specify you, the person, you say this, you're free now, to go with any person, right? Or any Adam. Adam. You don't say, I am releasing you, right? There's only one party. You are now put mutar for any person. So by a neder, you have to add me to you. But by a get, you don't have to, because obviously by a get, what am I saying? That you're mutar to every person because you're no longer married to someone else? You're married to the person writing the get. So by a get, it doesn't make any sense to require that. But it could be that in general, by a regular neder, where it could be very ambiguous, right? Where a person says, I want to be distanced, it should be far away from you, but you don't specify what should be far away from the person. So again, the context is we're fighting or disagreeing. So that's why Abaya says it counts. But according to Rava's opinion, even the Chachamim would admit that when there's such ambiguity, you have to have what are called Yadayim Mochichot. You have to have clarity that it's my party to your party, Sha'ani Ochel Lecha, Sha'ani To'em Lecha, right? That I want to be distanced from you, or I will distance from you about the things that I would enjoy with you. But by a get, you don't need that level of clarity, because by a get, basically the text and the context implies exactly what's happening. And so, according to, again, we're going to get to this tomorrow, we're going to keep discussing what is Yadayim Mochichot and what is not. But essentially, this is a big introduction to a topic that's a lot in Nedarim and Nazir, which is, what language basically is enough to make something turn into a neder. So we've seen the opinions that our Mishnah, according to Shmuel, seems to be saying Yadayim she'ena mochichot are not enough. Right? If you just say Muruchkani mimcha, that's ambiguous, because it might just mean I don't want to spend time with you, not that I want you to be prohibited to me like a neder, right? So you have to add Muruchkani mimcha sha'ani ochel lecha, right? distance from me that which I would eat with you. So you can't get benefit from my food. According to the Chachamim, they would disagree according to one opinion. But Rava says that everyone would agree that Yadayim Shein Mochichot will have in Yadayim. As I said, it's a huge sugya, and we will continue some of the questions tomorrow. So thank you, everyone. Have a
Thank
Shavua
you.
Tov.
Shavua Tov.
I'll see you next week, but hopefully we'll be learning all week. Take care.